Let's dive straight in.
Section 7. Columbus proved the Earth was round.
Everyone's heard the story. Columbus sailed across the Atlantic to prove the Earth wasn't flat. But here's the truth. People already knew the Earth was round for thousands of years. Ancient Greek thinkers like Aristotle and Pythagoras wrote about a spherical Earth as early as the 6th century before Christ. By 240 before Christ, Eratosthenes even calculated Earth's circumference with surprising accuracy using just shadows and math. So when Columbus set sail in 1492, the shape of the planet wasn't up for debate. It was the size of the ocean that worried people. The myth came later, partly because it made a better story. Wouldn't you rather picture a brave explorer proving everyone wrong than admit he mostly just underestimated the distance? Textbooks and children's stories simplified history until the idea stuck. Flat Earth versus Columbus the hero. In reality, scholars, sailors, and navigators of his time were well aware Earth was round. The debate was whether ships could survive such a long journey west, and Columbus got lucky that the Americas were in his path before the empty ocean stretched on forever. He didn't prove the world's shape. He just changed the map of where Europe thought it ended.
Section 6. The Great Wall of China is visible from space.
You have probably heard this one. Astronauts can see the Great Wall of China from space with the naked eye. But here is the truth. It is one of the most popular myths about space, and it is completely false. The Great Wall is long, yes, but it is also very narrow and built from materials that blend in with a natural landscape. From low Earth orbit, astronauts can see big features like cities, highways, and airports because they contrast with their surroundings. Have you ever looked at an airplane window and realized how small even huge buildings appear from above? Now imagine being 200 miles higher. That wall disappears into the background. In fact, astronauts themselves have corrected this myth. Multiple crews from the International Space Station have said that the wall is not visible to the naked eye without help. Photographs show that it is nearly impossible to spot without using a zoom lens or the perfect lighting. So if you thought the Great Wall stood out like a giant line across China, you were misled by a story that sounded too good to question. The funny thing is, the myth has stuck because it makes the wall sound even more impressive than it already is. It does not need the visible from space label to be amazing. The Great Wall remains one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements, just not one you can see from orbit with your own eyes.
Section 5. You need to drink 8 glasses of water a day.
You have probably heard the rule. Everyone should drink 8 glasses of water every single day. But here is the surprising fact. There is no solid science that says this number is correct. The idea seems to have started in the mid-20th century when health experts suggested that people need about 2 liters of fluid per day. What often gets left out is that they meant all fluids, including tea, coffee, juice, and even the water inside fruits and vegetables. Have you ever noticed how watermelon or cucumbers are basically water in food form? That counts toward hydration too. In reality, your body is much smarter than a fixed number. It tells you when it needs more water through thirst, and it balances itself depending on activity, temperature, and diet. You do not need to stress over counting glasses unless you are ignoring your body's signals. For some people, 8 glasses might be too much. For others, it might be too little. Doctors today recommend focusing on listening to your body and checking simple signs, like the color of your urine rather than following an outdated magic number. So next time someone tells you to hit exactly 8 glasses, you can smile and remember that hydration is about balance, not strict math.
Section 4. Napoleon was extremely short.
When you hear the name Napoleon, you probably imagine a tiny man compensating with a big army. But the truth is Napoleon Bonaparte was not unusually short at all. The confusion came from a mix of measurement systems. In France, his recorded height was about 5 feet 2 in French units, which actually translates to around 5 feet 6 or 5 feet 7 in modern English units. That was completely average for a man in early 19th century Europe. So why did history decide to shrink him down into a caricature? Part of the myth came from British propaganda during the wars. Enemies loved to mock Napoleon as a little corporal to make him seem less threatening. Imagine being one of the most powerful men in Europe, only to have cartoons make fun of your height forever. Over time, those jokes turned into a fact that still gets repeated today. Psychology added another twist. The phrase Napoleon complex was invented later to describe short men who act overly aggressive to make up for their stature. It had little to do with the real Napoleon, but cemented the idea that he must have been short. In reality, Napoleon's legacy was about military genius, not his inches. So next time someone cracks a joke about Napoleon's height, you will know better. He was not a miniature general, just a victim of bad math, national propaganda, and centuries of exaggeration.
Section 3. Chameleons change color to camouflage.
When you picture a chameleon, you probably think of it blending perfectly into leaves or branches to hide from predators. But the big misconception is that chameleons change color mainly for camouflage. It is not their primary reason. Scientists have found that color change is more often about communication and temperature regulation. Chameleons shift shades to show dominance, attract mates, or signal stress. Have you ever realized that those flashy color changes are basically lizard body language? It is less about hiding and more about talking without words. Camouflage can happen too, but usually it is subtle. Many species already match their natural surroundings without much effort, so they do not need to constantly change. The dramatic color flips you see in videos or cartoons are exaggerated. In reality, a chameleon might turn darker to warm up in the sun or brighter to cool down, almost like changing outfits for the weather. This myth stuck because it is visually exciting and easy to explain to kids. They change to hide. But biology is more complex and more interesting. So next time you see a chameleon shift colors, remember, it is not trying to disappear, it is trying to send a message.
Section 2. Vikings wore horn helmets.
If you close your eyes and picture a Viking, chances are you see a fierce warrior with a horn helmet. But here is the fact. No historical evidence shows that Vikings ever wore helmets with horns in battle. Real Viking helmets were practical, made of iron or leather, and designed to protect the head without adding anything that could get caught in combat. Can you imagine swinging an axe while giant horns made you easier to grab? That would have been a terrible idea in real life. So where did the image come from? The myth started in the 19th century, when costume designers for operas and plays dressed Viking characters with horn helmets to make them look more dramatic. Over time, this theatrical choice stuck in paintings, cartoons, and eventually movies. What started as stage decoration turned into one of the biggest misconceptions about history. The truth is, Vikings were intimidating enough without horns. They were skilled sailors, traders, and raiders who shaped European history for centuries. So next time you see a cartoon Viking with horns, you will know it is costume design, not archaeology.
Section 1. Humans only use 10% of their brains.
You have probably heard this one 1,000 times. Humans only use 10% of their brains. But here is the truth, this idea is completely false. Modern brain scans show activity across almost every part of the brain, even when you are resting or sleeping. Different regions handle movement, memory, emotions, vision, and countless other tasks. Can you imagine your brain wasting 90% of its space for nothing? Evolution does not build organs that sit unused. The myth likely started in the early 20th century, when psychologists talked about human potential or unused mental capacity. Over time, those ideas were twisted into the catchy but misleading 10% fact. What was meant as motivation slowly turned into one of the most famous false science claims. In reality, damage to even small areas of the brain can have serious consequences. That alone proves we rely on far more than a fraction. Neuroscience also shows that learning and practice strengthen connections throughout the brain, not just in a tiny section. So next time someone tells you we only use 10%, you can confidently remind them, we are already using 100%. So there you have it. 7 of the most common facts that turn out to be totally wrong. Columbus did not prove the Earth was round. The Great Wall is not visible from space. You do not need 8 glasses of water every day. Napoleon was not short. Chameleons are not hiding with color changes. Vikings never wore horn helmets. And no, we definitely use more than 10% of our brains. It is wild how these myths stick around, right? Makes you wonder, how many other things do we take for granted that might turn out to be wrong? If you enjoyed uncovering these with me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We drop videos that keep the vibe chill but still give you the kind of knowledge you can throw out in conversation and sound sharp. Think of this channel like your go-to place when you want to relax, but also want to leave a little smarter than when you came in. So stick around. We have plenty more mind-bending, myth-busting stories coming your way. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is next.